These are the Laetoli tracks. They're about 3.5 million years old. If we look at the close-up on the right, we can see it looks very human. All the toes are facing the front. There's a clear heel strike. But over the years, technology has shown that the devil really is in the details. This becomes obvious once we learn the biomechanics of how humans walk. There's that same footprint next to a human footprint, but this time they're under a photogrammetric scan. And this shows us the distribution of pressure, or the flow of momentum. So the way humans walk is the first thing that hits the ground is the heel. It's called a heel strike, right? And then we shift the momentum around the arch, cut into the ball, and then push off with the big toe. Also notice the ankle is this dark spot. Now on the other hand, we have the Laetoli track, where both the front and the back of the foot hit basically at the same time, and it's a much more flat lay down. And you can see the dark spot, the part with the least color, is where the ankle is. So it's actually placed further up towards the longitudinal middle, or like lengthwise. If you think the ankle placement isn't a big deal, just hold your foot out and point your foot straight up, and then release the muscles in your foot. The angle at which your foot hangs is because of that ankle placement. So imagine if your ankle was placed further up on your foot, the angle would be different, and that affects a bunch of things. But what's strange about our walk is that all that shifting of momentum creates torque in our joints that we don't need, and it's very inefficient. And I say that because it's the major reason that people, when they get older in age, they start having hip problems. Here are those tracks again with an added twist. There's a human track at the top. There's the Laetoli track we just looked at. And then there's a human trying to imitate the style of walking that is required to leave a track like this. It's called bent knee, bent hip at the top. We would have to move entirely different to move like they did. Also note the depth of these tracks. As I said, we have a very specific walk, and just like any machine, the parts are only going to move in a certain range when moving naturally, right? And that's what we see when we walk, because the angle at which the shin trails behind us is the same with everybody. It's 52 degrees. Oh, and there's also no arch. That's very important. Here's another track at Laetoli that was mistaken as a bear track for 60 years. But now we know that it actually was a hominin track, but a different kind of bipedalism, which is crazy. And the reason it's crazy is because it looks a lot like this track from about 6 million years ago in Crete. This is a Neanderthal foot. Now, Neanderthals are the only hominins that we have a complete record of their feet, because they did burials that were recent enough to survive. But you can see here, just like with the Laetoli track, all the toes are generally the same length. They don't really slope down like our feet. The forefoot is shortened and widened proportionally. The ankle is also further up. Then if you factor in bone density and how bones are a function of the torque that your muscles generate, so your bones are going to be thick and dense if you have high muscle mass or body mass in general. So you think of like dinosaurs and whales. Same goes here. So there's blood, there's muscle, there's flesh, there's fat all over these bones. So that indicates that it would be a big, thick, fleshy pad of a foot built for living outside in the weather for a lifetime. Which makes sense. That's how it should be. This is a Neanderthal footprint. Now, we don't have the scans for this, unfortunately, but it does look a lot like that fatter track. Then we have our foot. It's a lot more gracile. All the toes kind of slant off. The ankle's further back. The foot's overall just much more narrow. It's a completely different foot. Here's a Homo erectus foot next to Lucy's foot. And then our foot, not every footprint preserves perfectly, but even in its damaged state, these look more similar than these. Again, no real arch, because no arch is going to support that kind of weight, with the brunt of the weight being on the middle of the foot, more towards the middle of the foot as opposed to the back. And the weight is from the bone density and the resulting muscle mass. Now, I think this image is actually from before the Homo erectus track was discovered in 2016. But it might be time to change how those feet look. So I know that was an old picture, but it's a Neanderthal. Look at those feet. So yeah, we walk completely different than other human species did. They seem to be very consistent in their style of locomotion, or walking, or moving around, with at least 2 types of bipedalism other than ours. About a quarter of the global population has flat feet, just like they did. But we also interbred with Neanderthals and other species of hominin. You may have inherited some feet that don't match our body, and that's why most people have issues if they have flat feet. There's a lot more I could say about this. I'm Java, this is Gabidemics.